Fans in tears. Kelly and Mark planning to leave the U.S.? They said the internet had a short attention span, but for one electric week, it held its breath. Headlines bloomed and wilted like fireworks, but this one, whispered first on a late-night fan forum, then broadcast across morning television and threaded through coffee shop conversations, felt like the slow, inevitable hush before a storm. Kelly and Mark are leaving the U.S., the first whispered post read, attached to a photo that showed a private plane taxiing at dusk. Is it true? From the first syllable, the rumor was a living thing. It traveled through voicemail and text message, through shade room gossip and earnest Facebook posts. Fans who had followed the pair for decades, from soap opera adoration to daytime television companionship, felt their stomachs drop as though someone had announced a public holiday and then revealed it would be observed on a different continent entirely. On an ordinary Tuesday morning beneath the fluorescent lights of a small-town deli in Ohio, a woman named Patrice pressed her thumb against her phone as if she could smudge the pixels into a Kinder headline. She had watched Kelly live through her small screen for 20 years. She had wolfed down lukewarm coffee and cried when Mark's character had done something impossibly romantic. She had arranged her life around taped episodes and premieres, had lowered her voice to gossip with neighbors about what the two of them might wear to award shows. Now her hands trembled when she scrolled through the speculation. Her trembling was a public thing. Across the country, fans posted, messaged, called radio shows. The comment section swelled into rivers. Hashtags multiplied like stars. Some posts bore the gentle grief of someone who believed they were losing not just celebrities but a touchstone. The banter that began each morning's commute, the jokes that made office coffee slightly more tolerable, the friendly faces that had become part of the furniture of daily life. The rumor had legs because, of course, Kelly and Mark were not ordinary. They had a life that readers could enter like stepping into a well-loved living room. Kelly, with her quicksilver laughter and relentless optimism, had become synonymous with morning talk, a people-pleaser who could also deliver a hard question with nimble good manners. Mark had the kind of calm magnetism that made chaotic mornings seem orderly. Together, they were habit and history, a comfort double feature played in millions of kitchens across the country. But the truth, as truths sometimes do, was messier and more tender than the rumor's neat cruelty. On a fog-velvet evening in early spring, they sat on their back porch with 2 mugs between them, steam rising like small, white flags into the gray. Their home smelled of lemon cleaning spray and old books. A wind chime tinkled in sympathy every time the porch light caught it. Behind them, the rhododendrons were not yet in bloom, and the yard contained the ordinary detritus of family life. A soccer ball flattened by rain, a small chair that had been upended by a gust of wind. They looked like a couple in a photograph you would frame for a wall, familiar, intimate, not theatrical. "We should tell them," Kelly said, tapping the rim of her mug. Her voice had that particular softness she reserved for nights when the world felt heavy and she wanted to make everything bright again by sheer force of affection. "We should tell them why." Mark watched her, one eyebrow lifting. He had the sort of expression that made people feel listened to even when he did not speak. "We always tell them," he said. "We're loud about everything." "You mean the real why?" "The real why," she repeated. They were not planning an escape to a tropical island. They were not staging a dramatic vanishing act. What they were planning, painfully, deliberately, vulnerably, was to change the geography of their lives in a way that would, in some corners, feel like abandonment. Their oldest child had spent the past year abroad on a fellowship, a beautiful, soul-broadening program that involved language and history and a quiet college town pressed between hills. When the fellowship was extended, the choice presented itself like a fork with no obvious correct prong. "We could stay with him for a while," their child had said over dinner months ago, voice bright with the possibilities of trains and cheap coffee and foreign idioms. "Come for a season. Just until I'm settled. We should go. Mark told Kelly then. We should go and see the world through his eyes for a bit. Kelly remembered the sudden, fierce ache that had chewed at her chest that night. It was the sort of ache that arrives when a parent realizes time has an expiration date in the form of children who can find their way without you. It was the ache of going from constant to optional. The decision was not reckless. They measured it in conversations with each other and with friends. They thought of their roots in the U.S., the work they loved, the routines that cradled them. They tried to imagine markets and schedules, production meetings and airport queues. They imagined fans who would open morning shows and find a hole where their faces used to be. That afternoon on the porch, the plan felt like a stone they could both hold. They would take a sabbatical, not a permanent fleeing. They would move for a season, perhaps two, to be with their child and to learn how the world looked from a different latitude. They would keep the show alive from afar when they could. They would also, and this was what made the choice both gallant and terrifying, choose to live at a different speed for a while, to go slower, to watch sunsets that were not measured in commercial breaks. We have to be honest, Mark said finally. They'll spin this into something it's not. Kelly nodded. She thought of the way fans made their worlds, how they parsed interviews and pieced together fragments like detectives in a way that could create a whole narrative out of rumor and attitude. They could tell the story now and control the shape of heartbreak, or they could wait and let speculation bloom into fiction and then become inexplicable fact. They chose honesty. The announcement was tender. Not a press conference or a dramatic Instagram post with cinematographic montage. It was a taped message on a Thursday night in which they sat side by side on a couch with a cup of tea and a small, irregular smile. Kelly's eyes were bright, rimmed with exhaustion perhaps, but also with the warmth that had held the hearts of millions. "Hi, friend," she began. "We wanted to tell you something important." Mark took her hand and squeezed. "Our son's fellowship has been extended, and we're going to spend some time with him. For a bit," Kelly added, clarifying, because in the world of viral language, a bit can become a myth. "Not forever. We're not leaving the people we love. We're just going to see how life looks from a new city for a while. We'll miss you like crazy." They spoke plainly about the fear of disappointing people, about the joy of family, about the desire to be present in the big moments their child would have. They talked about how the world had been an uninvited teacher of distance these past few years, and how they'd learned, painfully, that moments are fragile. They promised postcards and guest segments and Skype calls with fans who wanted to wave hello. The statement was like a soft piano chord. Fans were grateful for the honesty. Many wept into milk mugs. But the internet is a seesaw. For every note of gratitude, a counterpoint of suspicion arose. In a climate of celebrity drama, some voices demanded proof. Audience members who had once felt tethered to Kelly and Mark's morning glories of humor and stability now felt betrayed, as if the home had been sold and the keys slipped under the doormat. "You're leaving us," said one comment, with the violent tenderness of someone who had made these two their daily ritual. "Who will wake us up?" Other posts were kinder. "We're happy for them." Family first. The most ardent supporters did what ardent supporters do. They organized. Fan pages rebranded as "Goodbye, See You Later" committees. There were Zoom vigils and compilation videos of Kelly and Mark's funniest moments, that had set to music that made even the most pragmatic viewer feel unaccountably sentimental. A few fans started a fund to pay for the pair's airfare, a joke that became a heartfelt offer, and then a conversation about boundaries. For Kelly and Mark, kindness came braided with sorrow. They were grateful and a little startled by the intensity of grief. Not every reaction was public. Some were quieter, private. A mail carrier in Arizona saved up her compliments for a letter she wrote by hand, in blue ink on thick stationery. "You've been my sunrise," she wrote, "and I wanted to tell you thank you." A high school teacher in Maine scheduled a surprise luncheon for a class of seniors who had grown up with Kelly's jokes as a background rhythm of their teenage years. A barber in Detroit closed his shop early so he could sit in front of the television and watch their announcement live. The human threads were many and fragile. For Kelly and Mark, the weeks between the public announcement and their actual departure were a study in wrenching logistics. Contracts had to be renegotiated, projects rescheduled, confidences shared with coworkers. There were moments of surreal hilarity, the line producer who suggested they hire a goat to stand in for them on set, joking but imaginative, and the studio audience who demanded a live farewell episode that was more a picnic than a performance. On their last morning before leaving, the set felt like a cathedral. The crew moved with a hush of people, carrying a relic. Cameras that had once focused so precisely on their faces scanned the scene with new tenderness. Colleagues hugged them. There were speeches that had the economical heart of true dignity. Not too many words, because sometimes language is unnecessary when the moment is heavy.